say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? If of Penima, Nefesh Yehudi Homiya, Fate Mizrach Kadima, Hayim Letzion Sophia.
Thank you very much, Andy. Please, everyone, enjoy your first course. So I can praise him. This is perfect. Barry has been president for like forever, okay? Because he was president pre-pandemic, pandemic, okay, and post-pandemic. So he has had to manage all sorts of issues and navigate his way through all that. So Barry has done a tremendous job as president. So I'd like to... Now, I'm just going to steal a minute here. See, I put an extra minute in the agenda just for me. So I'm not actually talking. Barry's going to talk about the Moseses, or Mosiah. I saw that in the biography as well. But one thing that is shockingly amazing, the first Shabbos, when Don and Jan came to White Oak, okay, they came to our house for lunch. Now, what is simply amazing is, nonetheless, they moved in here. So I just find that amazing and outstanding. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed president, Barry Graham.
Thank you, Howie. I'm not sure which I'm more nervous about, playing in the group this evening or making a speech. And the other thing is that my wife watched me write some of this speech, but not all of it. So this is basically unproofread. So this is not anyone's fault other than mine if I offend anyone. But thank you, Howie. It's actually during COVID that I took on the position, but it was interesting. But I wouldn't have wanted to have given up the opportunity to be in that position. It was, I learned a lot from it. So welcome to our wonderful banquet, and thank you so much for coming, everyone. Very nice to see so many people here. Before I continue, while it's too early to do a full tribute, I do want to mention our recent loss of Manny Sadwin. I was with him that evening just over 2 weeks ago. I also saw how he overcame health issues over the last few years and came back to shore, eventually resuming his long-standing job of reciting Pesukei de Zimra on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. He really seemed immortal, and it was such a shock to all of us. I also learned from his wisdom due to his position on the board, and he came to the last board meeting that we had and gave some advice that was very valuable, as usual, and he is sorely missed. So as you can see, we have a beautiful banquet here, and I want to thank the committee for all their hard work under the leadership of Mrs. Laurie Cohen, our banquet director. There's a list of all the people that have helped in some way, and I'm not going to mention everyone, and I'm probably going to miss out certain important people in the names that I do mention, but I want to give a special mention to Mrs. Jacobs, Mrs. Black, and Reverend Ballman for their hard work on the journal. And of course to everyone else that's listed on the thank you page. You know, I find often that when you give someone a job and you hear nothing, the reason is because nothing's being done. But in this case, that was far from the case, although I did hear nothing, but it wasn't because nothing was being done. It was because Mrs. Cohen was off there organising this event without any help from me. So I apologise and thank you for that. You did a really great job. We're very proud of you. And next year, if she decides to take the job again, I implore people to help, and so that it wasn't a one-man job, but I know that she did a lot of work on her own as well. But thank you so much. And as a token of appreciation, I have a little gift that I'm able to sneak in here without you seeing. So please come up and accept this from the school. Thanks also to my co-musicians Hirsch Kommer and Ken Strag for agreeing to play tonight at short notice during the reception. And big thanks to Rabbi Ballman for his guidance, his sense of humour, which you need with a president like me. And thank you to my wife Esty and to our children for allowing me to spend the time that I do working for the community. So Rabbi Ballman is going to be recognising Mrs. Musicant later on, so I'm not going to be speaking about them, other than to give a personal thanks to them for accepting this honour, as well as to Rabbi Musicant for his wonderful laning and davening. It's also wonderful to see Mrs. Musicant's parents, the Kellermans, here. I learned a lot from Dan in his role. And also from Shlomo during my time as Vice President. And I also want to thank the board for all their support and help. I knew when taking this role that the only way I could do it was by creating a strong team that had time to do more than just attend meetings. And there are people on the board that give far more of their time than I do. I just tell them what to do, they go off and actually do the work. But that's the way, otherwise I wouldn't be able to cope. And I want to thank them for it. Okay, so you do this in a way so it doesn't sound like I'm just reading from the journal, but Don and Jan Moses moved to White Oak in 1993, and they immediately got to work making the shul better for everyone. Don became involved in everything architectural at shul, including the renovation of the base medrash and the main shul, designing the sukkah, and consulting on the building of the mikveh. Mrs. Moses co-chaired the hospitality committee, which is still very powerful today, and she's been a regular Kiddush team member for several years. She was a founder member of the Women's Tehillim for Shidduchim group, which continues to meet to this day. Our son Yosef, also going into the wider Moses family, attended Rabbi Daniel Moses' Uru adventure, and I've also come to know Avi We speak from time to time, and his wife is the daughter of the Ferns and good friends of ours from Muncie. I visited Don when he was recovering from his illness a few years ago and watched in awe as he regained his strength and came back to shul. And he came back during COVID, and we're very proud that and grateful that he has come back, and that Don and Jan are able and willing to accept the award tonight. I was also, just one more thing, very grateful to Don when he was able to help out with the Friday night minyan, the later minyan, that he used to like attending, as I still do. It was very helpful to know that you could be there. Thank you, Don, very much for all your help with that. So, it's now my pleasure and honor to give the award to the Moseses, and be coming along shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to sing one of the tunes that we were playing. Maybe not. Here we go. Okay. Thank you so much. If you'd like to come up and accept this gift on behalf of the shul, and thank you so much, Mazel Tov, on this great, well-deserved honor. Thank you so much.
Now, well-diverse, experienced people who know what's going on. I said, what should I do with this opportunity? I like speaking, but I don't speak normally. So over time, it goes, it atrophies. You forget how to do it. But what the advice I got back was, make it short. Whatever you do, make it short. People don't want to sit there a long time hearing you continue on. And my first was a little bit offended. You know, I've got something good to say. Why should I make it short? I'll speak. But I succumbed to the request, and I have about 5 minutes of comments. Okay. Your shoes, Rabbi Bowman Shlita, honored Rebbeim, shul officers, board members, fellow congregants, and all who are here tonight in support of the Southeast Hebrew Congregation in Knesset Yehoshua. Jan and I were both overwhelmed and humbled by this honor, especially since we feel we already received so much from our beautiful Kehillah since our move here almost 30 years ago. When we first arrived, we found the community flourishing under the dynamic and loving guidance of our beloved Rav Kalman Winter, Zichrono Livracha, and his Rebbetzin Rivka. A community that emanated growth, warmth, chesed, and a palpable striving to grow in one's Yiddishkeit and Torah learning. Reflecting upon why we are here tonight has brought home the overarching importance of being part of a shul community. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos states that the world stands on 3 pillars: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilos Chasadim. Our shul is central to our lives because it provides these 3 pillars for us and our families. How grateful we are to be a part of this community. In this week's Parsha Shlach, we learned about the 10 spies and the concept of minyan, and the power that can result from working together in a unified fashion. When we as a Kehillah work together in unity, how much more can be accomplished. We have experienced many changes during the decades here. And yet the pillars of a shul have remained standing firm to support and elevate us. How grateful we are to Hashem for planting us here. Before closing, I'd like to acknowledge our amazing co-honorees, Rabbi Yoshua and Rachel Musicant. What a privilege it has been for us to share this honor with them. We know that with such committed and capable young leadership, our shul should, as Ras Hashem, continue to thrive. Thank you to our esteemed Rabbi and Mrs. Bowman for your constant inspiration and guidance. We'd also like to thank Lori Cohen, whose Banquet team and many others who have worked so much and put in so much time and energy to bring this banquet to fruition. We are so grateful to our families for your love, support, and your being here tonight. A family demonstrates its truest character and strength when rising to confront a challenge. And you certainly have succeeded in this task. Above all, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the beautiful blessings and kindnesses He has bestowed upon us within our family and within our community. Thank you for coming tonight. May Hashem bless you in all of your efforts.
Cleverly, I was sat in the furthest seat away. Lori said, maybe he'll get up one less time. But the good news is that in a couple of minutes, dinner will be served. So you may speak amongst yourselves now, as they say. Look forward to enjoying it. And thank you very much, Don and Jan, on behalf of Elaine and myself, I can say that. Thank you very much. That being said, it's my great honor and privilege to call upon Rabbi Bowman. He's our inspiration in our shul. Barry has already mentioned. He shares with daily learning with us. He has the vision and foresight that we're looking for. And Rabbi Bowman and I have the advantage of seeing almost eye to eye on almost everything. But I have like the floor of like another minute because I control the mic, you know. So I just want to recognize Josh the Musicant, Rabbi Musicant, for being an inspiration to all of us. He is tirelessly in the base medrash in the evening, working very hard in his studying. I have had the privilege of being in carpool with him, which is actually tremendous because he continues to learn in the carpool, sharing his knowledge with us, which was great. And so we greatly appreciated it. And of course, Rachel is a great neighbor to have, and we've been able to share many opportunities together of being neighbors. So with that, I will call upon Rabbi Bowman to present the Kesser Torah Award to Rabbi and Mrs. Musicant. Thank you.
I'm going to raise the mic a little bit here. So I want to begin by, first of all, thanking Lori Cohn for everything, all of her involvement over here in the banquet, in the journal, and everything. There were many people who were involved, including my wife, etc., in many things, but the overall picture of everything and putting it all together was really all about her leadership. I want to take this opportunity to thank Barry Graham for his leadership. When they talk about COVID derangement syndrome, perhaps it means taking the presidency during COVID. But his willingness to, and his wife's willingness to allow him to be involved in the shul. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and his leadership is very, very appreciated and valued. Also just want to add my mazel tov wishes to the Moseses, and a very, very well-deserved honor. Their kindness, their sweetness, their sincerity are hallmarks of what our community has been and is all about, and they should be zocheh to many years of good health, bracha and hatzlacha and nachas from all of the kids and grandkids. So in this coming week's parsha, the Meraglim come back from spying out Eretz Yisrael, and the news is not good. And they basically are able to whip the Jewish people up into a frenzy of disappointment, they're just freaking out about how in the world are they going to be able to enter Eretz Yisrael. Kalev, at a certain point, Pasuk says, Vayahas Kalev Esa'am, Kalev gets everyone's attention. Chazal tell us that it seems as though he's joining the cacophony of voices that are going to speak negatively about Eretz Yisrael. And he says, you know what else Ben Amram did? He starts getting everybody's attention because everybody, hey, Kalev is joining the party at Tupute, here he comes. And Kalev at that point then goes and tells the Jewish people something. Now, this is a moment. The Jewish people are going downhill. They are about to lose their opportunity to go into Eretz Yisrael because of the Meraglim and the way that they have accepted the Lashon Hara about the land. And Kalev has an opportunity right here to go and tell them why the Meraglim are wrong, and how everything is really good, and how we can do it, and it's not going to be such a big deal, and just don't listen to these guys. But what he says is, Alo Nala, we can surely go up via Rashnosa, and we're going to inherit the land. Why? Ki yochel nuchala, because we can. Now, Rashi, quoting Chazal, gives us a little more information about what he said to everyone. He says, you know what? Alo Nala, we can surely go up. Afilu b'shamayim, we can even go up to heaven. V'hu omer asu sulamos v'alu sham, if we would be told to make ladders and go up to Shemayim, natzlich b'chol dvarav, we would be able to do it. Now you have a people over here that are in a frenzy, they're very locked into the idea, Farshim tell us, they're very like, we are leaving the Midbar, we're leaving the miracles of the desert, and we're going into Eretz Yisrael, and everything's going to happen through Teva, everything's going to happen naturally. So the Meraglim are saying, listen, when we're in the Midbar, everything just works out for us. When we go into Eretz Yisrael, how are we going to defeat these giants? How are we going to defeat these people? They're very powerful, etc. The answer, we would think, would be, listen, we have a little bit of Hashem behind us, we're a strong people are scared of us, we'll be able to do it. What does he say? He says something that just sounds absurd. Even if we were told to go to Shemayim and to make ladders to do so, we would be able to do it. That sounds like, what? How is that going to convince the Jewish people of anything. This was his moment. This was what Kalev had to say to the Jewish people. This was his moment to tell them that they could do it. Why would he say something that sounds, frankly, so absurd? The answer is that Kalev understood that yes, they were leaving the Midbar, they were leaving the Anani HaKavod behind, they were not going to have the mud long-term anymore, water wasn't going to come flowing out of Iraq, they were going to go into a more natural world. But the way the natural world works is not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absent. It's that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, behind the scenes. He guides us. He tells us what to do. We do what he tells us to do. But the result is completely up to Hashem. If Hashem says, you want to go up to Shemayim? Make ladders and start climbing. Our job is to make ladders and start climbing. How do we get to Shemayim? That's up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not a world of miracles. That is what our natural world is all about. The idea of making a ladder to Shemayim. One would think that maybe, you would say maybe make a stairway to Shemayim, something like that. But the ladder is a very, very specific mashal. Because to climb a ladder, one needs to do two things. You have to have your feet firmly planted down on something. And at the same time, you need to be reaching with your hands above you to start moving forward and upward. Kalev was telling the Jewish people, what we need to do is we need to understand that yes, our feet are planted firmly down on something solid. But at the same time, we don't just remain there. That's not what we do, that's not who we are. We are a people that are constantly reaching above and beyond ourselves. And in doing so, if Hashem says, that's how you get to Shemayim, that's how you get to Shemayim. Our job in this world are to be people who have ourselves, we know where we are. We know where we're at. We have our feet firmly planted down on something. But we're always and constantly striving and reaching for something more. So Kalev isn't going to go and tell the Jewish people just what they want to hear. He's telling them like it is. This is the way life works. We know who we are. We reach beyond ourselves because that's what Hashem tells us to do. And if Hashem says that that's going to get us to Shemayim, that's going to get us to Shemayim. If he says we're going to get into Eretz Yisrael, we're going to get into Eretz Yisrael. No questions asked. That is a life of Teva. That is a life in our natural world. When we think about ourselves as a shul, think about ourselves as a kehillah, as a congregation, we have to know who we are, know what we're all about, but at the same time, we need to be reaching beyond ourselves. We need to be thinking, okay, so where do we go from here? What more can we do? How do we go further? How do we get higher? Last year we celebrated 100 years of our shul, an unbelievable feat for an Orthodox shul to have been in existence for a full century and to be strong and to stay true to everything that it stood for and everything that it was all about. And it became clear what the definition of who we are, what that was, what that is. It's a community that is anchored in Torah, a community that takes tefillah seriously, and a community that's like a family, cares about one another, that's there for one another, that reaches out to one another. That's who and what we were and are all about. But at the same time, as we move forward into the next century, It has to be with a sense of, we know who we are, we know what our identity is all about, but now we've got to move ahead. We've got to take it to the next level. We have to make sure that not only are we strong in what we've been, but that we continue to develop ourselves in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in our relationship with one another, in our commitment to our community. Baruch Hashem, over the last year, there have been so many wonderful things that have gone on in our community. Whether it be something from the improvement of our physical facility with our, I mean, you hate to focus on bathrooms, but, you know, it's nice. And the improvement that we saw physically, thanks to the very, very hard work of a few hardworking people who probably don't want to be named, and the programs that we've had, a beautiful Shabbos of Chizuk with Yeshiva, having Rav Lupiansky and Rav Reingold here, the barbecues that we've had, the women's events, the teenager events, Benos, all of these things, with a weekly Hot Kiddush and all of the many things and the many shurim and all of the Torah learning that goes on, put that all together, and we have a community that's Baruch Hashem, reaching beyond itself. And something else that we've been working on this year is the improvement of our online existence, which, according to some people, is the only existence, but whatever. But it's our sense of who we are and putting that forward to others. And in doing so, we've actually developed, as you can see on the front of the journal, and it's also like little thingies on the little frames on the tables, the new logo that we've developed. And the idea behind it, it's a fascinating idea when you go into a branding type of thing with a branding company. And you try to think about who you are and what you're all about. And the things that came out were a community that's about sincerity, a community that's all about warmth, kindness, being inviting to others, being passionate about Yiddishkeit. All of these things tried to capture in this new logo. It has a flame in the middle representing the passion and the fire that we all have for chesed, tefillah, Torah. Has a luchos because the bottom line of what we're all about is the Torah and our dedication to it. The colors that we used were all about the inviting sense. Apparently colors have feelings. Didn't know that. And the Chaf and the Yud inside the flame, representing Knesset Yoshua, one of our many names that we use for our shul. And put that all together, and we are trying to put forward what we are and what we're all about, and to build on that into our future. And Be'ezras Hashem, just as Kalev said, that we can, Ki Yochel Mucha, we can do this. Be'ezras Hashem, we can and will do all that we can together to move ahead, to keep developing ourselves as individuals, our families, our community, and we will move forward, and we will move onward, and Be'ezras Hashem, our community will continue to thrive and succeed. Part of what we, Be'ezras Hashem, will also be doing over the next year is having shortly a Sefer Torah campaign that again is building our community through Torah, and how we can be spoken to for all kinds of details about that, but everyone's participation and support of that program is very, very important for our community. The main reason that I was called up here, I think, was to talk about the music camps. And when we talk about our community being anchored in Torah, having a Pillar of Torah award that would go to the music camp family is so appropriate. As a Baal Koreh, as one who leads tefillos all the time for us, the Shira, the song of the Torah, is something that so naturally comes from the musicant family. It's what the Torah describes as Kisu Lechem Shira Hasos, the song. It's the tune that resonates. It's really the background music of their music, not musicant, but musicant of their lives. That remember it's like that one. That really is what they're all about. And be it their chesed and their hospitality, and the limud haTorah and tefillah. There's something very unique and special about the limud haTorah of Reb Josh, and that is that so many people learn, and I'm part of this category also. Like you have Daf Yomi, you have this, you have that. You have these different programs that you're a part of, and they keep you motivated to keep on moving. And what everybody deep down inside wishes they could do is they could just like learn Torah to the point where they feel like they really understand it, without the pressure of like some program pushing them forward, without falling off the wagon because they're not motivated. But it's to be like internally motivated to just keep learning until I get it, until I understand it, and then keep moving. And if you come here to Night Seder every single night and on Shabbos afternoon, you will find Reb Josh and his chavrusa just learning. And what are they learning? They're just learning Torah. What pace? The pace that it takes to understand it. What's motivating him? Ahavas HaTorah, love of Torah. That's it. That's what it's all about. It's natural, it's pure, it comes so from within. And it's something that he's all about. Obviously, it's something that the whole household is all about. No one gets out every single night from their house without a very, very supportive wife backing up that this is something that our family is all about. It's about limud haTorah. It's about the chashivas. It's about the importance of learning Torah. And therefore, it is with tremendous sense of the real appropriateness of this honor that call up the musicians to come and accept the Pillar of Torah award.
So we just talked about real yeshiva learning, how it's really important. The call that I have with my chavrusa, Rev Nachum Miller, he's at a conference, so he's not able to be here. Being in that spirit, I feel now's an appropriate time when your chavrusa says something that you don't like, that you argue with him, so I'm going to argue this a little bit now. Here's my chance for rebuttal with what was just said. When we were asked to speak, I was asked to speak, to say a few words. I was told to keep it to 3 to 7 minutes. I jokingly responded, oh, so 37 minutes, right? You laugh now. You're going to remember at the end of this night how the previous honorees, so Mr. and Mrs. Moses, how he spoke so succinctly, so well, so clearly, sweetly. You're going to be wondering, when is this guy going to be ending? One of the things that I think any person would find annoying, imagine you go to a bookstore and you want to buy a mystery novel. It's a beautiful mystery novel, it's a very interesting story, you've been waiting to read it for a long time. You get there and they tell you, there's just one little problem with the mystery novel. The author forgot to tell you how it ends. Understandably, I think you'd be a little bit upset and maybe a little bit disappointed, maybe not so interested in reading that mystery novel. In last week's parsha, we have something of a similar vein. In Parshas Baloscha, it tells us as the Jewish people were leaving Har Sinai, that it says that Moshe goes and says to Chovav, his father-in-law Yisro, he tells him to please come with us to Eretz Yisrael, L'cha yitanu ve'yitavnu lach, come with us, it will be good for you, Ki Hashem divrei tov al Yisrael. because Hashem has said good things are going to happen for the Jewish people. Yisro says, Lo elech, I'm not going to go. Ki im el artzi ve'el moladeti elech. I'm going back to my land. I'm going back to my birthplace. Moshe then responds, Al na ta'azov osanu. Please don't leave us. Being all the wonderful things, all the miracles you saw in the desert, and you'll be eyes for us. And it will be that when you go with us, the good that was promised to us will be given to you as well. And then the Torah conveniently forgets to tell us whether Yisro acquiesced or not. How could the Torah leave that information out? Maybe you'll tell me, well, it's blatantly obvious. Either he did or he didn't, right? Well, actually, it's a machlokes rishonim. The Ramban says that he did indeed go. The Sforno points out that Yisro himself didn't go. Indeed, he did go home, but his children went. But how could the Torah leave that out? Isn't that important? It's almost as if the Torah cares about telling us that Moshe wanted him to come, but doesn't care about whether he actually came, which is extremely puzzling. Why would the Torah care about the fact that we wanted him to come, not whether he actually came? Also, the fact that Moshe was begging Yisro to come. Al na ta'azovo sanu. Rashi says, Ein na el lashon bakasha. Never says the word please. It means that it's a request. It means that he really was sincerely desired this. So that people shouldn't say that Yisro converted only for land. He only wanted to be able to make out with a good land, which is the entire reason he converted. But once he saw that converts don't receive a portion in Eretz Yisrael, then he left. I mean, Maris Ayin is a very important point. We certainly don't want Yisro to look like a bad guy. But because of Maris Ayin, so people might think that Yisro converted for ulterior motives, that's a reason why Moshe should beg him? It seems a little bit hard to believe. It must be, therefore, that Moshe was really begging because there was something in it for us, as the Jewish nation. What could that be? When you go back to Yisro's first greeting the Jewish people, that happens the discussion right before Matan Torah, right after the war of Amalek. So imagine the Jewish people having left the cruelty of slavery, having left the horrible, incredibly horrific conditions that they were in, and they are now redeemed in glorious fashion. And what happens? You think that this is great. They're at the pinnacle. Hashem has shown them how much He loves us, how much He cares us. And who's the very first people that we meet after we leave Mitzrayim? Amalek. Amalek sends the message to us, not only are you terrible, but you're better off dead. What a horrible message to receive, right at the pinnacle of when we achieve the highest thing. That someone goes up and says to us, I wish you were dead. And they meant it. What does Yisro do? Yisro hears about that and he comes. Vayishma Yisro, one of the opinions of why Yisro came, Rashi notes, is he heard about Milchemes Amalek. He heard about this, he heard about the Kriyas Yamsuf, he heard about all the wonderful things. He hears and he says, they're all crazy. Every single one of them is crazy and insane. You guys have something which is so phenomenal, I need to be a part of this. How validating, how wonderful it is for Yisro to come and validate us, especially at that time, at that very vulnerable moment. And in essence, all Gerim, all people new to the Jewish people, validate us as a nation, showing that, in fact, one of the questions we say is that, don't you know that the Jewish people are viewed as reviled nowadays? And one of the things that a convert should say is, yes, and if only I should be zochesh, I should merit such things. It's incredible. That means that they're willing to go down with us in the depths of the depths, because they see that there's something special and unique about us. And that is what Yisro did. After Amalek spoke so harshly and went so harshly, trying to destroy us, destroying our any sense of accomplishment, Yisro turns the tide and says, you have something which is unfathomable. But now let's suggest that Yisro doesn't come. Yisro decides that I'm not going to go to Eretz Yisrael. And the Jewish people think that the reason he didn't come was because he's not getting a portion in the land. And that the whole reason he came to begin with was only because he thought he'd get a portion in the land. Now that's a real tragedy. It's not the tragedy of a Marasayan. The tragedy is that the entire validation that Yisro provided to us as a people would be completely and utterly null and void. We would have said, yeah, Yisro, he thinks that we're special only when it benefits us. So, in reality, therefore, we're not really special at all. How horrible that would have been. Which is indeed why Moshe begs him to come. So then that we wonder, so why doesn't the Torah say whether he came or not? To the point that's even the subject of a machlokas, of an argument amongst the Rishonim. What is listed right after discussing about whether Yisro was going to come or not, when Moshe requested him to come? The very next pasuk, immediately in the same section, says, "Vayis'u mehar Hashem," and that the people travel from the mountain of Hashem. So the Gemara, the Ramban quotes the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph. Rashi alludes to this to some extent as well. That what is the words by Yisru Mehar Hashem? Why is it phrased in that way? Whole discussion as to what exactly the Gemara's drasha is, but the answer is that Saru Me'achrei Hashem, they turned away from Hashem. That something happened at Har Sinai when they left, that they turned away from Hashem. And the Ramban explains what that means is they were running away like children run away from school. Running away, hoping that they would not receive any more mitzvahs. With that in mind, now we understand exactly what the Torah is telling us. It is very important that Moshe requested that Yisro come. Yisro validated and provided great justification for everything that we were trying to accomplish. And at our most vulnerable moments, propped us back up. But if we don't believe it in ourselves, and if at the very moment we turn tail and run, then there's nothing Yisro can do. So it doesn't matter whether he came. The fact that we chose to turn away from Hashem, it doesn't matter whether he came. And the Torah doesn't record it, because we don't need to know it. The fact that they turned away from Hashem was a reason in of itself, that we don't need to know it. Everything that Moshe was trying to accomplish, therefore, was lost. This teaches us two very important things. One, the importance of validating others, especially at people at their most vulnerable moments. But I think even more integral than that, it shows the importance of believing in the very things that we believe and hold dear to ourselves. If you don't believe in what you're doing, no matter how much validation anyone else gives you, will accomplish anything. I think that's a wonderful message for our community. Baruch Hashem, we have a wonderful community. I feel so privileged, my wife and I, we feel so privileged to be a part of it, that a community that believes in its vision, a vision of true dedication to Torah, Yirah Shamayim, specifically growth. Growth is key. I was just reading the Bar Torah just over Shabbos from Rabbi Bowman. It's in the journal that talks about how we're a nation on the move. The Torah was given at Har Sinai, almost like at a way station, almost, if you can think of it that way. Because the Torah is only meant for people who are growing, who are moving. And that's the only way it can be. And the fact that we chose this community is because we saw how great the community is. And as much as we feel really overwhelmed with the honor, but we feel that there's so much more that the community has given than we could possibly have received. This time I'd like to give some special thank you, a special mazel firstly to the Moses family. We owe so much to them, especially at this time. Rabbi Moses has been very responsible for our son's upbringing over every summer. Camp Uru runs a wonderful program. We've talked to you about a lot of different things and probably complained a little bit too much, but we really appreciate everything you've done to create a wonderful program. Thank you so much. Mr. Moses has actually spent a nice amount of time actually teaching my son art, various art techniques and stuff like that. This is before COVID, before unfortunately we had to cancel that. But it was I really appreciate it. It created some really very beautiful, interesting things. So thank you so much for that. Rachel was also working very diligently with Mr. Moses, helping him publish his book of poetry. It's very nice it was beautiful reading the poems that are inside the journal. So if you haven't had a chance, please take a look at that. And they've just been such rock solid members of the community. We're so happy for you to be honored. It is very long overdue. And mazel tov to you. Ma'ashiva Hashem kol tadnu lo b'yalai. Hashem has given us so much. There's nothing we can do to thank him for everything that he's done for us. At this time, I'd also like to thank a lot of the people that have really helped my wife and I to catch the point that we're at. All my wife's rebbeim and my wife's rebbeim as well, and our teachers. A special hakaras hatov, a special gratitude to my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Yochanan's wife, Shlita, who has really molded me into the man I am in terms of my learning and my abilities. I really appreciate it, and I wouldn't be anything without him. Barry Graham and the Shul board, thank you so much for extending us this honor. We know you all really have a thankless job, but we really do want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I know Menachem Miller isn't here. I'd like to thank him and his Rebbetzin Susie Miller. Thank you so much for working with us for the biography, being role models also for our kids as well, and certainly for us as well. And especially him being my chavrusa. That was the chavrusa that Rabbi Bowman was referring to. It's a real privilege to learn with him. His mind is phenomenal. It's such a pleasure. Mrs. Lori Cohen, thank you so much to the Banquet Committee for putting this together. I'm just having put together a bar mitzvah. I know that there's all the things that go beyond this. It doesn't just happen magically. Thank you so much for putting together such a wonderful, lovely event. Official catering and the support staff and going around and just going behind the scenes and making such a wonderful, improving the ambiance of the event. Thank you so very much. The many friends, family, and other supporters of the shul who sent in from far and wide, sent in ads. I was amazed about all the people who sent in ads. Thank you so much to everybody who did that. We owe a special hakaras hatov to Rebbetzin Winter Rothenberg, as well as our son Menachem Winter, that both of them were extremely instrumental in us staying in the community over here. We were this close to moving and not staying in the community here. We were so happy, though, that they convinced us to stay, the two of them. It made a phenomenal difference in our lives and our children's lives, and we really appreciate it. And they are true testaments. I was very zocha to briefly know Rabbi Winter Zatzal, and true testaments in terms of what they accomplished and what the shul has accomplished to the wonderful efforts and the impact of Rabbi Winter Zatzal. We owe a tremendous hakaras hatov to Rabbi Mordechai Ryan for being our family's first Rav. He really was, and he was such a wonderful role model for us and for our children and the community, especially during the difficult times that we were coming right after the patira of Rabbi Winter Zatzal. We owe a tremendous hakaras hatov for him, and especially we do. Thank you so much, Rabbi Ryan. Rabbi Bowman, thank you so much for taking the helm and leading us into this next stage of development. That we know that you're going to take us great places. Already, we've had many wonderful conversations with you, and we're looking to continue to work with you and for you to be our Rav and to inspire us and to be a role model for our children and for our entire community. I want to thank my parents, my older brother, and my Rachel's parents for coming in from really far, and we really appreciate you coming in. We really didn't expect them to come, and therefore, it really means so much that you came out for us. Thank you so much. You guys, all of you have been so instrumental in terms of our development, and we wouldn't be anything that we are without you. My wife's grandparents have been so instrumental as well in terms of our development. I just remember my Zaidi Lavasham, he told me shortly before he passed away that, he said, okay, you have to work. It's important for you. You have to have a job. Remember who you are. You're Torah Yid. It's had a tremendous influence in who I am. My children, Yaakov and Vanya, thank you so much for growing up with us in this lovely community. It's such a privilege to be raising you. We're so happy to have you in our lives. My wife Rachel, I owe tremendous hakaras hatov. Shali v'shalachem shalachi. She's the one who pushed us to stay here. So if you ever get upset, you really owe her the hakaras hatov more than anyone else. And thank you so much. And above all, thank you everybody for being the wonderful community. As much as you feel that we have given you, is literally the opposite. There's nowhere near enough words we could ever say thank you to show our appreciation for what you've done. We wanted to be in this community because of all the wonderful things, all the wonderful people, the wonderful role models, all the people who are so dedicated to Torah growth. And it's because of you that we feel that we are who we are. We couldn't be here without you. So thank you all very much. We wish everyone only the best, only continued simchas, and we continue seeing our shul grow. Michael El Chayil.
These plates will be cleared. You may talk amongst yourself. The dessert will be served shortly, which will be followed by benching and Myra. So thank you very much. But before, as that's in progress, let me just do a couple of quick important announcements. I'd like to thank and recognize, first and foremost, let me take this opportunity, Lori Cohen, who this would not be happening without. Lori prepared, worked on the journals, worked on schlepping tables at noon today. She was from one end to the other end. It doesn't happen without Lori. I'd like to thank the Gavaldi musicians, Barry Graham, Hirsch Kammer, and Ken Strad. I'd like to thank Shua Menlowitz on keyboard. I'd like to thank Corey Myers on photography. I'd like to thank Yogi Garfield on videography. So, all terrific. Thank you all so much. And again, dessert will be served, followed by benching.